Okay, Dakota, this is just for you. No one else can hear it, and it's very important. Okay? So I want you to read this too. If you have to pause the screen, fine, but I'm also going to read it to you. The first step you did today is the hardest and the bravest, right? Because you have to face criticism, you have to admit your weaknesses, you have to show, I didn't really do all the work I should have done that I know I should do today. That's fine. Abandon all that. Throw that behind you where it belongs. The second point is you've reached a point in your life where you said, I want this. I want to get into nursing, but I have to learn this, math, to get from point A to point B. That's a fantastic achievement. Just recognizing that and taking the first step is the biggest important step. And I want to emphasize, you might not get from point A to point B right away, but you will if you keep trying. And that's the point. People give up. Just like the people who buy gym membership after New Year's, they give up after a week. And it can be scary and defeating because you have to look up, accept all the stuff that we covered and go, oh my God, that's just so much. And you also have to say, I can't do that very well, and you feel embarrassed. Throw that stuff behind you. Everybody learns from the beginning. The sooner you accept making mistakes and looking dumb, the better. I'm not going to judge you. I'm here to help you. So, oh my God, it's just too much? No, it isn't. You just have to approach it like you do the gym. You have to approach math the same way. You will not be able to lift 200 kilograms over your head on day one, but as you work out in math, you will increase each and every day your abilities. And the secret is every day, just like the gym, do 30 minutes or more, but you don't want to do brain burnout, a day. Never cram. I can't emphasize this more. Do not cram the night before a test. It just doesn't work. You're better off studying the day before the night before and then just taking the night before off. Because sleep's important, food's important, confidence is important, way more important. So, the good news, it gets faster. Because if you work out every day for 30 minutes, just like at the gym, your muscles start multiplying and exploding. Because as you get more into it, your technique improves, your confidence improves, and therefore your ability to learn speeds up. You're not going to notice it the first week, just like you're not going to notice any trim, muscle ability, or any really good results from the first week in a gym. But if you do it every day and commit to it every day, you're going to jump ahead so fast that you're going to go, holy cow, I can't believe I can do this in just a month. So approach it like the gym. Don't skip leg day. And appreciate the fact that you've taken the biggest, most important step. If we lose touch, I don't want you to give that up. I want you to say, okay, fail or success, doesn't matter. I'm going from point A to point B. That's the big part. People who give up never can, when you don't try, it's impossible to reach point A to point B. Okay, let's get on to conversion techniques. A good way, and I watched a video, what's a better way to keep it in your head? To keep it in your head. Okay, you have to go back and understand something. Let's say an amount you really understand well is a car speed. Car speed isn't just kilometers, it isn't just hours, it's kilometer per hour. And it helps to understand what that term means. If I say I'm going 100 kilometers per hour, it means I'm going 100 kilometers for every 1 hour. It's very easy to understand. We just don't say I'm going 100 kilometers for every 1 hour. We say the word per. And per just means for one. For one. Means I've already divided it like this. Now, how do we get there? Okay, let me go back. First of all, I want you to notice it's kilometers per hour. Notice it looks like a fraction. That means we probably took kilometers and divided it by time. And that's indeed what we did. Speed, known as velocity, but I'll put an S, is equal to distance divided by time. So look to the units to understand what was divided by what to get your term. But let's go backwards. I'm an apple eater, let's say. Let's say I'm a champion apple eater and I eat 20 apples in 4 hours. 20 apples in 4 hours. And I want to enter my record into the Guinness Book of World Records. How do I tell them how many apples per hour I can eat? Well, when you look at 20 divided by 4, and that's how we do it. It's really taking the 20 and dividing it up into 4 pieces. Well, those pieces have to be equal size, and it happens to be 5. You can divide a 20 up into 5 equal pieces. And you also have to divide the 4 up in equal pieces to get an idea of what's going on. So that means I have divided the 4 by 4 and the 20 by 4 to get 5 apples per 1 hour. And that's what all conversions are and all ratios are, is there's an amount up top and an amount at the bottom, and it's showing you the biggest amount usually at the top. When it's a decimal, let's say it says 0.25, and here's where it helps to practice your basic math skills. The decimal 0.5 is the same as 1 over 4. It's the exact same thing. Punch in your calculator and find out. Let's say that's 1 liter for every 4 gallons. When I take the 1 and divide it by 4, I get 0.25, which comes out as 0.25 liters for every 1 gallon. And that is because I get less liters for every 1 gallon. But more on that in a second. The basic concept you have to understand is this one. If I'm measuring apples per hour, I'm taking the 20 apples and dividing it by 4 hours. And I'm doing it like this. I get 5 apples per hour, which means my apple eating speed is 5 apples for every 1 hour. However, we do it like this. We say 5 apples per hour. And even better, we do 5A/HR, where A stands for apples. Now you're going to see this a lot, and that's called units. Let's get on a unit that's not apples per hour. So I drive to Montreal, and I go 250 kilometers. And it takes me 2 hours, okay? 2 hours. And I want to know how many kilometers per hour I went. So there's the secret. Notice it's a fraction now. Notice that it's kilometers divided by hours. Okay, that's a big hint. That means that if I'm going to get the unit kilometer up top and hours at the bottom, I should probably take 250 kilometers and divide it by 2 hours so that I get this, right? There's the hours down at the bottom, and there's the kilometers up at top. There's the unit I'm looking for, kilometers per hour. So that's a big hint of what to divide by what. So if I take 250 divided by 2 in my calculator, I get 125 kilometers. And then we say per hour. But what we're really saying is I took that 250 kilometers, I sliced it in 2. I got 125 per 2 equal slices per 1 hour here, and I got 125 kilometers per 1 hour here. And that's essentially how I figured out that I was going 100 kilometers for every hour. And I write it as 125 km per h, but it still means I went 125 kilometers for every 1 hour. That's all it means. You never hear someone say, I'm driving to Montreal, man, I went so fast, I went 250 kilometers per 2 hours. You went how fast? I went 250 kilometers per 2 hours. Oh, you just went 125 kilometers per hour. Nobody talks like that. We always reduce it down to the bigger number here per 1 unit down here. And it doesn't matter what the ratio is. For instance, I can even, and this might confuse you, let's say I took 10 hours to get to New York City, and I went 1,000 kilometers, and I want to know how many hours for 1 kilometer I went. That means how many hours did I spend to travel 1 kilometer? Well, there's the hint right there, hour divided by kilometer. If I went 10 hours here, I probably have to divide by 1,000 kilometers. Seems really weird, but okay, it's still a measurement. And I get, when you punch that in the calculator, by the way, here's how you do it. 10 is being divided by 1,000. How many zeros? 3. Where's the decimal point? There. Go to the left when you're dividing. 1, 2, now I got to add a 0, 3. So I go 0.010 hours per kilometer, which means I went 0.1010 hours for every 1 kilometer. So that means when my car went a kilometer in distance, this is how much time passed. And you might say, well, that's not really a measurement I know of. Well, we could convert it. How many hours in a minute? Here's a great conversion thing. Let's start right there. Now let's look at some conversions. That's how you got to understand the ratios. And if you don't, just do more of them. But let's look at a conversion. That's a great example right there. How many hours are there? How many hours? What are we trying to get? We're trying to get from hours to minutes. So I want to say how many minutes is that many hours? Well, you have to know how many minutes there are per each hour. And I think you know that there are 60 minutes for 1 hour. 60 minutes per hour. There you go. Now look at what we start with. So here's a good thing. Look at what you start with. Look at what you start with. Sorry about the spelling. Look at where you want to go. I want to get to minutes. What did we start with? I started with hours. Since minutes is our destination, that's got to be on top. So if I'm going to multiply this by something, it's got to have the minutes up top. And I have to get rid of these hours. So the bottom is going to have to be hours. Well, let's see if we have the conversion correct. 60 minutes up top. Yeah, 1 hour. Okay, that means I multiply this by 60 over 1 hour. So it's 60 minutes. And you also cancel out the units. So you got to learn that these will cancel out hours and hours. And I'll be left with 60. Well, 60 times that, if you put it in your calculator, ends up being 0.6 minutes. That means it takes me 0.6 minutes on that last example to travel 1 kilometer. And you might say, well, I still don't have a good idea of what that is. Great. Let's do another conversion. What if I said, how many seconds is that? Okay, where did I start? Look at what you started with. I'm starting with minutes. Minutes. What am I trying to convert it to? I'm trying to get to seconds. That means I have to multiply this by something that has seconds at the top and divided by minutes to get rid of that minutes and end up with where I want to go. So where I want to go is always at the top, and what I'm trying to get rid of is always at the bottom of this conversion. Well, all I need is a conversion of what is seconds per minute. How many seconds in 1 minute? That's what this conversion is. Well, how many seconds are there in a minute? There's 60 seconds per 1 minute. And I think you know that. There's 60 seconds in 1 minute. That's what per means. 60 seconds per 1 minute. So that means I have to multiply that 0.6 by 60 and then divide it by 1 minute, which is just divided by 1, but the units disappear, to get my seconds. So I'll discover that that ends up being 6, it ends up being 6 times 6, 36. 36 seconds. So that's very interesting. 36 seconds is the answer, which means 0.010 hours is the same as 36 seconds. That's interesting. The reason I did it by hand here is let's see if there's always a conversion. So you can do hours to second calculator, and something will always pop up. Let's see if 0.01, what did we start with? We started with 0.010 hours, and we got to 36 seconds. All right, 0.01 hours, and look at that, is 36 seconds. Wow. Let's do time to minutes instead of the seconds to see if we got the right minutes. Yeah, remember we said it was 0.6 minutes right here. 0.6 minutes right there. 0.01 hours was 0.6 minutes. I don't want you using these calculators because you're not going to have them on a test. It's fine once in a while on an assignment, but these should just be used to confirm your result. But notice I can pop up any calculator I want. Look, I can convert weeks to days. How many days are there in a week? There's 7. So if I'm looking for 1 week, I'm going to get 7 days. There it is. Right? That makes sense. Let's look at some common conversions. And actually, let's look at everything. And we're going to cheat for some of them. Let's just take a screenshot of that and do a couple conversions. All right. Suppose I had, there we go. Suppose I want to convert years to days. And so this is where I start. Where did I start? Years. Years is what I have. And I told you I'm talking about 3.5 years. All right. And I want to know how many days that is. Well, I need to know where I'm going. Where am I going? I want to end up with days. With days. So that means I need something that has days on top here. If I'm ending up in days here, the conversion has to be days, and guess what has to be at the bottom? Per year. So now I just need to look up a conversion. How many days are there per year? I'm going to let you know right now, it's not quite accurate. It's really 365.24 something. But we're just going to call it 365 days for every 1 year, which I think you know. And look at that. The days are up top, which is where we want to go. And the years are at the bottom, which is what we want to get rid of. So that means I take this 3.5 years, and I multiply it by 365 to figure out how many days that is. Let's do it. 3.5, and you know what? Let's keep it really accurate. The actual conversion is multiplying it by 365.25. And that's because every 4 years there's a leap year. I'm sure you've heard of that. That's why the days aren't perfect. So I'm going to take 3.5 years, and I'm going to multiply it by 365.25 days in a year, and I get 1,278.375 days. So that means I ended up 3.5 years is equal to 1,278.375 days. That's interesting. Let's see if that's true. Years, we're going to convert our years here to, and we had 3.5, and today's 1,277.25. Oh, okay, I got it wrong. They're using a calendar year, so they're using 365 days. So let's do that and times 365 days and just keep it in a calendar year. Yeah, there we go. I got what they want. They didn't quite do the accurate years. It all depends. If your teacher says calendar year, that just means 365 days. So putting this back to what our conversion takes, they're actually looking at a calendar year, and they got that. So I'm going to correct it. So instead of multiplying it by this, we multiply by 300 in this case. So look at that. We got how many? 3.5 years is 12.75. You might say, oh, but we got it wrong. No, just remember I used a different multiplier because I was using accurate days. And they're using 365 because they're using what's called just a calendar year. So that's how many days. But notice the 0.5. I know how many days that is. It's 1,277 days. But what's 0.5 days? In hours. Well, let's do that. How many is 0.5 days converted to hours? Well, where did I start? Days. Where do I want to end up? Hours. So I need a unit that's hour per day because I want to end up at the top and I started with the bottom. So how many hours are there per 1 day? I think you know. There are 24 hours per 1 day. So if I multiply this 0.5 times 24, I end up with 12 hours. Half a day is indeed 12 hours, which means 3.5 years is 1,277 days and 12 hours. Let's do some more conversions using this chart on the left. Let's do the same system. Where do I start? What unit do I start with? And by unit, I mean years, hours, minutes, feet cubed, meters cubed, volumes, liters, gallons. What unit did I start with? So in this case, I'm going to start with days. I'm going to say I have 234.633 days. And I want to know how many, let's go 2 ways on this. Let's find out how many minutes that is. Uh-oh. I don't know a day to minute conversion. Okay. Other than minutes, what would we know that we do know? Well, we know hours. Okay. Let's keep in mind that we want to get to minutes down here. Let's start with hours. Okay, I want to go from days. And where do I want to end up? Hours. What's the unit here? Hours. And what's the unit that I started with? Per day. So I need to figure out how many hours for 1 day there are. Well, I think you know that there's 24 hours. There's 24 hours for 1 day. per 1 day. It's actually, so it would be actually written like this, but we don't bother with the 1. So if I multiply 234.3 times 24, what do I get? 234.33 times 24. And don't worry, we're going to do other direction ones. I get 5,623.92. Let's keep the exact same amount. Don't round up. Okay? So that means I end up with that many hours. And how does it end up being hours? Well, when you have the bottom thing here with the top thing here, which is days, these cancel out, and what are you left with? Hours. So now I know how many hours, but remember, I actually want to get to minutes. So now we start a whole new thing. We say, what did we start with? We started with hours. Where do we want to end? We want to end with minutes. What's the top conversion I'm looking for? I'm looking for minutes, because that's where I want to end up with. Per what? Hours, because that's going to where I started. Well, how many minutes per 1 hour are there? Well, there's 60 minutes per 1 hour, which means I have to multiply this by 60 to figure out how many hours is this in minutes. How many minutes is that? Okay, let's do it. Notice the hours cancel out, and I'm left with minutes. So I'm going to take 5,623.92, and I'm going to multiply it by 60 minutes. And I end up with this, which is an astronomical and hard to understand amount, and why would anybody want to look it out? But they did. I end up with 333,434 minutes, 0.2. So that's how many minutes are in 234.33 days. Notice the conversion wasn't that hard once I figured out what I'm starting with, what I end with. What am I starting with? What do I want to end with? That's the conversion I'm going to use. What I end with is going to be at the top, and what I started with is going to be at the bottom. So I just have to figure out how many of these things in one of those things. And your conversion tables will give that to you, both directions. Okay, what if I asked you now, though, notice that little 0.2 at the end? What if I wanted to know how many seconds that is, because I have minutes? Well, I start with 0.2 minutes. I'm trying to get to what? Seconds. So what unit do I need to find? What conversion do I need to find out? Seconds at the top per 1 minute. How many seconds are there in 1 minute? 60. What's 0.2 times this? It comes out to 12 seconds. So instead of writing 333,435.2 minutes, I could now write 337,435 minutes and 12 seconds. And that's what you'll see a lot. People don't say when are you coming over? In 0.6 minutes. No, they say like in 40 seconds, right? So you won't see that. So often you do have to convert that to seconds. Let's go the other way. Let's go the other way. Now we're going to have to make up some units here, just because we're not, every month has a different number of days in it. But let's try to convert to day from days. How many months? How many months is that? Okay, interesting. What did I start with? Days. Where do I want to end with? Months. So therefore my unit that I need to figure out is how many months in 1 day. Okay, and that's the tough one, right? How many months per 1 day are there? I'm used to having it the other way. By the way, let's assume that there are 30 days in each month. Even though there's not, let's just go with 30 days. Well, I don't have a nice conversion here. I just know that there's 1 month, and the bottom part I don't have per 1 day, so I have to put 30 days. There's 1 month to 30 days. Oh, well, that means I'm going to multiply this by 1, which were days, and then divide it by 30. That's all you do. That's where I want to end up with. That's what I will have in the bottom. How many months per day? I don't know. How many days per month? Well, I'll just put 30 days down here times month. So really, what am I doing this? I'm dividing it by 30 days. But this trick that I'm using allows you to figure out what ratio to put at the top and what ratio to put at the bottom. Sometimes you won't know the ratio. Your teacher will tell you, or your table will tell you, and we'll get to that. So really, I multiply this by 1, and then I'm dividing it by 30, because anything at the top is something I multiply by. Anything at the bottom is something I divide into. So what's 234.33 divided by 30? It's 7.811. So that means there are 7.811 months. And notice the days cancel out, and I'm left with months. That's how many months these number of days represent. It's this days and it's that many months. Let's keep going backwards. Okay. Let's say I have 7.811 months and I want to know how many years is that? And you might automatically say, well, it's not a complete year. There's 12 months in a year. That doesn't matter. We're going to go and figure out how many years that is using our technique, okay? So what's our technique say? It says, where did we start? All right. We started with months, right? We started with months. Where do we want to end up? We want to end up with a unit in years. So that means I need to figure out how many years per month are there, huh? I don't know how many years per month there are. I only know how many months in a year there are. So, okay, well, that's fine. We're just going to draw our fraction, and we're going to put 1 year up here, because I know it's 1 year, and there's 12 months, which essentially means there's 1/12 of a year per month. But this is how you do it. So now you can multiply this by 1, and of course, what are you going to do after? You're going to divide by 12. So essentially, I'm taking this and dividing it by 12. But this trick, where you find the ratio of what's up top to the ratio down below, allows you to figure out when you're dividing and when you're multiplying. So you're still always multiplying these top numbers. Just remember that when you don't have per 1 down here, you're then going to be dividing by this number down here. So that means I'm going to take 7.811 months and divide it by 12, and the months will cancel out, to find out how many years there are. And yes, it's going to be less than 1. 7.811 divided by 12 is 0.6059, etc., etc. years. How many years is it? That many. It goes on and on and on. Now your teacher will probably tell you to round up. If I was rounding up to the 4th digit, it would be this. So that is how many years that 7.811 months is the same as 0.6509 years. And there you go. That's how you do conversions. But let's start with some stuff that's tougher that you're probably going to do, right? Here's a conversion table. Let's look at the ones that he's been giving you. These ones here, right? Let's use the first one right there. All right. Let's look at converting inches. Let's say I have 72 inches, and I want to know how many centimeters that is. Let's look at our chart. Well, they tell me 1 inch is 2.5 centimeters, but let's use our method. What did I start with? Inch. What am I trying to get to? Centimeters. So I need to find a ratio that I multiply by that is centimeters, and I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger here. That is centimeters at the top and inches at the bottom, right? Centimeters per inch. Let's look at my chart now to see what thing I'm going to multiply my 72 inches by. I'm going to multiply it by, well, 2.54 centimeters for every, what does it say? 1 inch. Beautiful. Isn't that great? Now I have a thing I know I always put up top and a thing I know I always put at the bottom. I'm always going to multiply these tops and then maybe divide the bottom into it. Well, I never have to divide by 1. What's 72 times? Notice the inches cancel out, and I'm left with 72 times 2.54. 72 times 2.54 is 182.88 centimeters. Boom. You just found out how many centimeters there are in 72 inches using this very nice trick and this conversion table. Let's go back to some of the common ones we did today. Let's say we have 64 feet. And I'm going to do some backwards ones too. And I need to find out how many meters that is, okay? Meters, how many? Question mark. Feet, how many meters is 64 feet? What do I want to end up with? Meters per feet. What do I have on my conversion chart up here? I have 0.35305 meters. So I put that with the meters. And it says 1 foot. So I put 1 foot. So I'm just going to have to multiply 64 by 0.305 meters. This is a nice trick. And it allows you to always remember where am I going is how you figure out whether you're multiplying or dividing. So I got to take 64 and multiply it by 0.305. Oh, 0.305. And I end up with 19.52 meters. 19.52 meters. That means there's 19.52 meters and 64 feet. Let's see if that's true. Let's take feet to meter calculator. And we started with 72 feet. And I don't know if I got it actually. Did I actually do a calculation there? Yeah, I put, no, 64 we started with. There you go. 64, 19.5072. So I kind of skipped some digits, which I shouldn't have. But yeah, so don't do that. Just don't do what I just did. But I've sort of rounded it up to 19.52 meters, and that is pretty much the answer. Ah, look, I did a rounding error. That should have been 19.51 meters. So I just kind of misread my calculator wrong. But look at how nice this technique is. Let's go the other direction. I want to convert 114 meters, and I'm just picking these randomly, into feet. Okay, where did I start with? Meters. Where do I want to end up with? Feet. So the unit I'm looking for is that I'm going to multiply this by is feet at the top and maybe divide by meters. Well, when I look at my foot to meter conversion, I have 1 foot at the top, so I'm going to multiply this by 1. And then I have 0.305 meters at the bottom. So I'm going to multiply this by 1 and divide it by that. And the meters will cancel out, and I'll be left with feet. Okay, so essentially I'm just taking 114 and dividing it by 0.305. I'm pretty sure you've caught on by now, but isn't this a nice system? So this is what I get. And it means that there are, and I'm going to just round up, there are 373.77 feet in 114 meters. Let's see if that's true. Let's convert backwards, and let's just put in the feet that we have there, 373.77. See if we get that meters. Yeah, see, we did some rounding errors, 113.92 instead. So if we kept this more accurate, like if I'd kept what was in there, I'm going to get a more accurate result here. And actually, if I'm looking at it, the error that's coming about here is because they're giving you a very rounded, this conversion up here is very rounded, so it affects the end result by, 0.3 meters. So the more accurate your conversion thing is, the better it'll be. So your teacher's going to give you the conversion chart or which chart to study. You don't have to memorize these charts. Let's keep going. All right. Let's look at that hot tub example. That hot tub was a square like that, right? And it was like this, and this, and this, and this. I might not remember exactly the hot tub details. Okay. Just going to get rid of that stuff. All right, and just try to make it visually accurate. Not quite, but anyway, there we go. So it was 3 wide, 2 depth, and 3 of height. And I believe the ultimate question wanted to know how many gallons based on its foot capacity, and then it gave us a gallon to foot chart. So I'm just going to put gallons to cubic feet to find out the conversion instead of looking up the thing. So let's see if we put in 1 foot here instead. Let's see what we get. Yeah, there we go. I think that's what your teacher told you. Or actually, yeah, that's what your teacher told you. So let's just copy that and pretend that's the actual conversion. It might not have been. It doesn't matter, really. But let's just notice the units. They're telling us 1 gallon is this many cubic feet. Okay, well, how do we find the volume of this? Well, you multiply all the dimensions, and this is something you're going to have to get practicing. Is how do you find volumes of certain objects? Well, just like an area, you multiply. If you want a volume, that's 3 dimensions, so you have to multiply its 3 dimensions. 3 times 3 is 9, times 2 is 18. So I have 18 feet cubed. That's what I start with, and what do I want to end up with? Gallons, right? Because that's what your teacher said. How many gallons can fit in? Well, I know I'm starting with this. I know I want to end up with gallons, right? So that means I have to multiply it with whatever I want it to end up with, gallons per cubic foot, right? Which was FT cubed. Okay, let's look at my chart. Well, it's 1 gallon, so I'm going to be multiplying it by 1. And then I'm going to be dividing it by that. This really handy. It tells you exactly what to divide by what by knowing where you're going will be at the top and where you come from is going to be at the bottom. So that just means I'm multiplying this by 1 and then dividing it by that. So I'll let my calculator do that. So I'm taking 18 feet and I'm dividing it by feet cubed, by the way. 1, 3, 3, 6, 8, 1. This is how many gallons I'll get. Yeah, that's how much we got before. So it means that, and I'm just going to round up here to 5. It means that I get 134.65 gallons out of this 18-foot cubed hot tub. That's how many gallons will fill it, assuming it's perfectly transparent or perfectly hollow. But notice the system, where I want to go, where I want to, where I started from, and all I have to do is find the conversion numbers and put them in. I think that's a great system that'll help you out a lot. I hope you watch this.